Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Okay, so right before the event, we saw a whole host of product releases, and we had to delay our episode for a bit just to include some, but I couldn't wait any longer. And of course, naturally, we released the episode, and then they come out with some other stuff, including a spring collection of accessories. So from this, I recently picked myself up the Spruce Fog and Lichen Nike Sport band in Apple Canberra, so that's pretty cool. I'm loving that. So have you had a chance to grab anything for yourself yet?
No, I went to check out all the new bands. I would say the one that you got was top of the list. Obviously, you and I differ around sport band versus sport loop, so I would have gone loop, but I certainly recognised that the band was very nice looking.
Yeah, it was one of those like window opportunities. I sort of had only about 10 minutes to kind of like run to the store and get back in time. And I got in there, I was just like, I couldn't choose. I was like, oh yeah, I'll just go with my old faithful, Nike Sport band. But one day I'll go the loop.
So how was the Apple Canberra store? So usually I make a habit of going to visit the Apple store at every new city I go to, but when I was in Canberra, I was only there for one night. And it was, I left early in the morning and arrived late at night, so I didn't really get to check it out. So was it cool?
Yeah, it hasn't been updated to the new style yet, obviously, but it's pretty standard by what you expect for an Apple store. It's just a single, it's not multi-story or anything like that. But they've incorporated the cool sort of illuminated, illustrated panels and stuff along the walls, so it still feels very fresh. But it is more like the majority of other Apple stores in Australia. So yes, all right. So we had a couple of products. A product that we missed, in addition to the spring collection, is the second generation of AirPods. So, of course, this comes with the Hello Siri support, which was teased to us, over a year ago. People are saying it has improved audio quality of the actual Siri response, which is good. Because I did notice that, if you're listening through the AirPods, it used to sound a bit lower quality than it should be. Features a H1 headphone chip, which allows up to 2 times faster switching, which I'm a big fan of, 1.5 times faster connect to calls, and 30% less gaming latency. I don't often game with it, so I haven't really noticed the latency, but hey, it's an improvement.
What's the difference between like gaming latency and like video editing latency or any other direct video and audio latency?
I think it's latency in general, but I think they focus on gaming because that's something that like a lot of people are worried about in terms of wireless headphones.
I wonder if it's better. Like obviously gaming has a higher frame rate, or can affect the frame rate due to like the intensity of the graphics. I wonder if it's like a separation of the audio from the graphics on the iPad side or whatever device you're on, and then so it's probably not relying on the same processor to send to the the H1. Who knows? But it seemed very curious to me that they specifically mentioned the gaming latency.
I mean, either way, they've managed to introduce another chip. So that's pretty cool. Slight price bump to $249 for the standard, and the wireless charging case version, which has a little indicator light on it, $319 Australian. So there has also been like a bit of a leak of an upcoming Powerbeats Pro, which is essentially like, the Powerbeats version of AirPods with this sort of clamshell style wireless charging case. Now, all that being said, I am always the optimistic one, as Nick knows, and I'm like, yep, they're definitely releasing AirPower by the weekend. And the weekend came and the weekend went, and I was wrong. We had the event, which we will very much dig into after this, but yeah, it was followed by some sad news. So what happened after this, Nick?
Oh man, this was truly, truly sad.
Yeah.
So the event, as you mentioned, was on the Monday, and then I wake up early on Saturday morning, and so this was, the weekend you're referring to. This is like the following weekend, right? And I wake up and I see I immediately go onto Twitter and I just see there's AirPower news, right? And at that point I didn't quite, get what it was, but it didn't look good. So I hop on to 9 to 5 Mac, and there's the news article. So Dan Riccio, who's the Senior Vice President of Hardware Engineering, issued a statement, and the statement read as follows. After much effort, we've concluded AirPower will not achieve our high standards and have cancelled the project. So, yes, that was kind of, I didn't expect it to go that far, and I will admit that I'm actually still in shock. I can't quite fathom Apple cancelling a project. This never happened before it's in my memory. There are things that they've, announced that have just not happened, like FaceTime being open source, which was due to some patent issues. But, this is like something completely, unexpected. So, yeah, it's kind of, there are a few elements to think about. Obviously, there is the timing of the announcement. I mentioned to you that I thought it must have been recent. And there were some news articles saying that the project was cancelled abruptly. So that kind of confirms that, they just made the decision that, so my view was that it was cleared on like a, small batch manufacturing basis to go into production. And I think that whatever happened during production, like on a mass scale, when they went through like verification testing there, I think that it was probably failing those verification tests. And therefore, like, given that it's been, 18 months and they've just run into roadblock after roadblock, they probably just said, look, we can't, who knows, like they probably just didn't even know where to start on the, to fix that. So my view, and then they did mention that in that other article, they mentioned that the cost of manufacturing was just too high, and that sort of validates my point about, it being fine on small batch basis. But as soon as it goes into mass production, it's like, because the standard's lower, right? So you can't get quite the precise layout of the coils or whatever it is. So yeah. So my view is they only took that decision probably in the last few weeks. Hence, actually, like I would say it was before they released the new AirPods, but
yeah, definitely, yeah.
Definitely after December, because that was like the last critical point. Was it was promised in 2018, and then we never heard anything. So I think they thought it was imminent, went into manufacturing, had issues, and they couldn't do it. And I'm personally disappointed that AirPower didn't come out, but I'm really disappointed for the people who were working on it, right? They were working on it. You can imagine, it's normal in a lot of roles to have like high pressure time, for 2-3 weeks a year, let's say, where you really have to buckle down and work late hours. They would have been in that mode since September in 2017, right? Like they would have been really trying to get it to market. And yeah, so I really feel for them. They would have put in so much effort, and for that to lead nowhere is really sad for them.
Yeah, so I certainly think I agree with that, because obviously would have had, people working around the clock just trying to get a fix for this thing. And essentially it looks like it came down to the overheating issues, right? And beforehand, when you were in a previous episode, when you said, can't Apple release just one that's got like the 3 sections? And really, it's like once they announced the magical aspect of placing it anywhere on the pad, they couldn't, to me, it's like they don't want to bother with anything less than that. And so, yeah, just cancel the project altogether, unfortunately. So obviously there is references to AirPower on a whole bunch of packaging for these different products, including the latest AirPods. So obviously, like, it happened somewhere between that packaging being printed and everything being assembled, and then the the actual release of the AirPods. So I figured that, yeah, they probably knew, and they thought, well, these AirPods are fine. They can work with other Qi chargers. Let's release them. Don't do the cancellation, obviously, before the event because it's going to sour the whole thing. Just do the event, and then they did the statement. So at least we have an answer, because it was just so confusing for a long time. The fact that all these references were appearing, it's like they really thought that they nearly had it, and then just no.
Well, I think they did think they had it, and hence why it went into mass production, because that was verified by the supply chain sources. I can't remember if it was Digitimes or Ming Chi Kuo, but yeah, they had said it had gone into production. So I think they did think they were close, right? Like, it's not just the people building it. There's the marketing team, everyone involved. I really do feel for them for not getting this out. But there was a lot of misinformation on the project. A lot of people didn't really understand why people were excited and sort of thought it was just like people jumping on the bandwagon to be like, anti-Apple, even though as fanboys. So it's kind of weird because they didn't really realize what the pull was for the product. Obviously, you mentioned before the ability to place it anywhere. That meant it wasn't just 3 coils, just, neatly spaced across the mat. So a lot of people didn't really get that. And, it was challenging. So people were like, I can't understand why Apple couldn't, do a simple wireless charging mat. And it really wasn't that. And I wish they had gotten to show people the real benefit, but unfortunately it didn't work out that way. And I don't know what that means for me in terms of wireless charging, because I'm not really a hold off kind of guy. I go for these first gen products all the time, and but I held off on wireless charging till AirPower was hopefully released. But so now is kind of the time for me to start making the decisions on, do I get like a little cheap one for my bedside table? How does that work with, I don't have the wireless charging AirPods. So it's kind of, I don't know.
I've seen heaps of ads served to me over Facebook and such of the Nomad one that has been like, it's sold out. You have to back order it. There's like a month wait on it. And that's probably like the closest thing in terms of like a nice third party accessory that you could do, multiple products on. So in terms of actual AirPods themselves, I love the advantages in it, but I'm happy to hold off until mine start dropping off. And obviously you've only really recently replaced yours. So that being said, do you think Apple will return with the wireless charging product at all? Or do you think they could just, let's just scrap that and look forward to releasing something in terms of contactless distance charging?
I think they'll quietly work on, what is between AirPower and contactless charging. I think that there's something in between there that Apple, moved towards now, and probably less ambitious, but in terms of like chronologically between. So I think they'll continue doing it, but it won't just be like a simple, like a charger. So I think just on the AirPods, one of the things that's really worth noting for me, because I have so many, like one of my favorite features is the Hello Siri feature, but because I have so many HomePods, I have it turned off on my iPad and my iPhone, because I can just, press the button for those so I don't confuse which device needs to listen to me at that point. Yeah. And then on my Apple Watch, I have like just raise and speak. I don't really say the, trigger phrase anymore. So one of the things I learned with the Hello Siri on AirPods, you actually need to turn it on for the connected device, which would have no benefit for me when I connected to my phone. So but given the fact that I just bought, replacement AirPods recently, and I don't have a wireless charger at the moment, I'm going to just stick with mine. But once I make a decision around my wireless future, then I can know what I'll do. But I would just definitely get the case and not new AirPods yet.
Yeah. So overall, a bit of disappointment, but I would rather it got to this stage and we have an answer and we can just look forward to other Apple products. Hopefully we don't get any issues with other pre-announced products like the upcoming Mac Pro. So, oh man. Okay, so speaking of events, we are moving into the keynote with the first of 4 big announcements. Nick, TV Plus. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, Apple TV Plus. So there's no pricing announced as yet, but it's most likely that the price will be $9.99 US per month. They've just said that it's coming later this year. We could probably expect that to be around September, in line with the new iOS and new iPhones. So it's the originals only streaming service. So one of the things that they actually spoke about was Apple TV channels, which was like another way of subscribing to channels within the Apple TV app. And that's kind of, I think those Apple TV channels and Apple TV Plus together are the Netflix competitor rather than each one of them individually. Because obviously Netflix has the originals, but they also have a lot of content from other apps. So Apple, in terms of TV Plus, will be originals only at this point. So the pitch with as with any other Apple product is really the quality. And, it really comes down to the quality of the product, right? So in this case, you've got a high caliber of actors and directors. I mean, you had like J.J. Abrams and Steven Spielberg. I'm spoiling for my next point, but yeah, I was really excited by the, quality of, talent that they had on board. So yeah, the emphasis seems to be focusing on storytelling. So they had the guy from Silicon Valley, his name's escaped me.
Kumail Nanjiani.
Yes, and he really did the best job, I feel, on just on that storytelling element. So they did have a few different shows. So they basically had like these stars come out on stage and explain what they're working on. So we had Steven Spielberg come up, Kumail
Nanjiani.
Kumail Nanjiani came out and as he spoke about his show, which will be based on I think it's called Little America, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and it's based on an immigrant in a small town, and I can kind of heavily identify with that, having been an immigrant in the Sunshine Coast.
Yeah.
So J.J. Abrams, for if those that don't know, it was Star Wars that he's involved in. So
Star Wars, Star Trek, whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
So he, really big names. One of the things right at the end, they kind of made it it's all done. And then Tim Cook comes out on stage and he says, there's one other thing, or I can't remember his exact words. It wasn't one more thing, but it was, there's just one other thing. So, they play this montage of, they play, not a montage, but they play this mini clip, really hyping up the next guest. And I started wondering, who could it be? At one point, I even thought, have they brought an Steve Jobs back in AI, and hologram form? Okay, granted, it was, 5 o'clock in the morning for me and I had not gotten much sleep, but I was like, wow, what is really going on? I started getting goosebumps the way they hyped this up, and we're Michelle and I were just really, is it Steve Jobs, Barack Obama? Who could it be? God himself. But yeah, anyway, it turned out to be Oprah. It could probably walk amongst most of those names. So
I mean, I knew halfway through that clip when they did that big, they had the little video transition with the big O that kind of did a reveal. Right. I was like, it's Oprah, straight away.
So how big was Oprah in Australia?
Yeah, pretty big. She was right up there, especially in the 90s with the talk show stuff. So there was her, particularly early to mid 90s. There was her and Ricky Lake and people like that. So but I haven't seen her stuff on television for a long time, but I certainly definitely remember it growing up.
Yeah, because it seemed in the UK at least, she wasn't that well known, not a household name, but in South Africa, for me at least, growing up, Oprah was a, daily thing. So yeah, definitely pretty huge. So yeah, at least I got that, I had that understanding when she did finally come out. And my favorite part is when she, in typical Oprah fashion, she threw out her arms and It's like it can only happen through Apple, and the way she said Apple was just amazing. Like they turned it into a GIF, which I had sent you, and I just love it so much.
I cringed a little bit at that. Like I know it's her style, but it was, I don't know.
She's just really passionate.
Yeah, I think for Oprah fans, they would have appreciated it, but I was a bit like, I was waiting for her to give, free AirPowers to everyone in the crowd or something.
You were still hopeful at this point, right?
I really was, yeah. But when he did the one more thing, I was like, surely he's not going to chuck an AirPower at the end of this event, but yeah.
It wouldn't have fitted.
Well, yeah. I mean, he replaced AirPower with Star Power, that's for sure. So, what do you think of the way they, I actually really liked it. Some people thought it was cheesy, but I thought it was really effective the way they did the fade to black and reveal and the switch of the different celebrities.
Yeah, on that particular point, I thought it was cool. Like you got the sense, okay, that's done now, and like now we're moving on to a brand new story and sort of like refresh. So yeah, on that point, I was happy with it.
What about the lack of trailers? Because that's the biggest complaint with most people.
Yeah, there were definitely points like I did appreciate that these people had all worked on this and they were excited, but there were definitely points where you felt like, okay, maybe a trailer would work better here to kind of convey your message. Like, I'm thinking particularly around Jason Momoa, the sort of blind, was it blind or deaf, that world? I can't remember.
Yeah, he's
remember
blind.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's blind.
Yeah, so the whole world is blind. Like, no one has sight on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that, like, I think it would have been better if they had a trailer there just to add in some drama.
Yeah, because they have some screens, like some stills from that show and that on the website and stuff. So surely they could have just dropped, like, while they were talking, they even just drop a little bit of footage
like
in the background.
Teaser.
Yeah,
like a 30-second teaser.
Yeah.
But one of the closest thing that they did have was the singer-songwriter show, and that woman was amazing. I really enjoyed the
it's a good way to close it.
Yeah, it was really good. So I enjoyed that quite a lot.
It reminded me of when they had the keynote with Lana Del Rey that time.
Oh yeah, that was so good too.
Yeah.
What about with you too?
Oh, you too. They're going to give out like
so
free. Yeah. No free albums here, but yeah. So they had the announcement for TV Plus. They had TV channels, as you touched on. They've updated the TV app. I mean, I've already got it now. Like, it's already on my Apple TV, and it is different, but it is still very familiar. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's definitely shares the same heritage as the previous Apple TV app. I was looking at it earlier, and I kind of got the sense that it's designed with 4K as like the first class citizen there. So you've got these big, beautiful, like movie posters when you click into like the For You section. And yeah, it's just, it's a little bit more modern, and it's kind of like taking the same theme that we've seen with Apple from iOS 7 through 12, as compared to 1 through 6. 1 through 6 was like a static, theme, and we've seen them iterate on their design ideas in 7 through 12 a lot more frequently. And I think this is like sticking with that same idea where it's not brand new, but it is new enough to feel fresh.
Yeah, so my favorite part about that whole app update is just the change of the icon, because I was thinking, well, if they're going to bring this to other TVs, how are they going to know it's Apple without an Apple logo? And yeah, they've taken the same color scheme, but it just says Apple TV. And I was like, yep, that looks cool. It just feels more official now that we know that they're going to be bringing that, as well as, iTunes, which we've previously covered from CES, to smart TVs by Samsung, Vizio, and then even things like Roku and Fire TV are getting it. So yeah, they've actually, in terms of support for rival devices, they've really got out there. And this is further begs the question of when I asked you, what do you think this is going to mean for the actual Apple TV hardware itself? It's like they're just it's almost like they're willing to just sacrifice that as a product, and rather just get the the revenue through the actual service itself, through however people want to access it. So what do you think of the viability of this though, in terms of, because people are starting to get subscription fatigue and that, do you think it was considering there's no trailers and that, do you think it was a convincing enough launch or reveal to entice people? Or do you think they needed to be like, bam, here's the pricing, the launch is, next month and that sort of thing. Like, should it have been more immediate?
For me, I can only speak for myself in the sense that I'd said going into it, I'm probably not going to be interested, but they really did sell me on the storytelling aspect to it. And I wondered, like, would I want to miss out on those stories? Probably not. They seem really interesting, right? And, they're at least portrayed by really talented actors and actresses. So, yeah, I think for me personally, I think I can find a way for it to fit into my budget in life. So
yeah.
But at the same time, like, I can understand that if they'd come out with, just imagine, all right, that Apple had come out and said, okay, for each of these services that we are announcing today, this is how much they're going to cost. Like, people would have just added it up and been like, Apple expects me to pay them extra $45 a month. Like, yeah, so they're kind of trying to stagger that out such that you don't really see that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, I'm expecting it's going to come with at least a 1 month trial. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. So, speaking of trials, there's actually a trial available in America for the News Plus platform. So, what's all this about? Well, basically, you've got your Apple News, and this is an expansion upon that. We can, through a monthly subscription of $9.99 a month, you can get access to hundreds of magazines, as well as leading newspapers, being Wall Street Journal and LA Times. So, yeah, disappointingly only in the US at the moment, but that's sort of how Apple News went anyway. Now, the magazine is either this new sort of animated interactive Apple News Plus format, which looks cool, or it's just like the plain PDF. So no scanned PDFs, but just the plain digital file. Offers offline reading, which is a must in my eyes. So, do you think this service is compelling enough? Because there is more information coming out that Eddie Q really had a hard time trying to get New York Times and Washington Post on board. Apparently, his pitch consisted of the sentence, "We'll make you the most read newspaper in the world," which just it fits with Eddie Q's style, but yeah, I'm not really sure about that line. And then, unfortunately, also it's had a bit of some issues with the launch, with app crashes and DRM issues. So people were able to actually share the magazine files or whether to someone with a non-Apple device, and they were able to access it without paying for it. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit hard to get excited about it when it's not available in Australia yet, basically.
Exactly. At least we did get, confirmation somewhat around the timing and that it would be coming to Australia. So, yeah. I don't know on this one whether I'm that keen. Like, I use Apple News all the time, so let's see what happens. But it would have to be pretty compelling in that I would have to find a magazine that is, updated for Apple News format and that I actually end up reading regularly. So
yeah, if I can so I at least used to always read and subscribe to a few music magazines individually. If those magazines were within this service, it's already paid for itself, right? So that's easy for me. Newspapers, I don't really care about. So, because as you said, we get our news elsewhere just for Apple News in general. The bit that in addition to all that, the bit that I do feel a bit iffy about, and as I've mentioned before, I'm not providing this type of journalistic content or anything, so I have no bias there. But yeah, the fact that the Apple take the 50% cut, that's really sort of ruffled feathers for all these different magazines and such. And they're even sort of going as far as to push their own readers to just be like, hey, don't go with News Plus, just subscribe to us individually. So it just feels like the tension there just feels a bit awkward to me. Big thanks to the SIZZLE. Are you sick of trawling through blogs full of ads and sponsored content, social media riddled with influencers, and a collection of RSS feeds that never seem to end, just to stay on top of what's going on in the tech industry? Our new sponsor, the SIZZLE, can remove that burden for you. 1 email a day, delivered to your inbox every afternoon, packs all the important tech news into an easy-to-read, ad-free, PR-free, influencer-free summary. Sign up now at thesizzle.com.au/slice. We subscribe and enjoy it, and if you like this podcast, you probably will too. Head on over to thesizzle.com.au/slice and sign up for the newsletter now. Thanks again to The SIZZLE for sponsoring us. All right, Nick, Apple Card.
Yes, Apple Card. Now this was a rumor I'd heard of, but I didn't actually really believe. So this is an Apple Pay first credit card. So you sign up and activate instantly through your iPhone. Obviously, it requires credit checks and your usual sort of activation process. But unlike most other credit cards, you're immediately able to add the Apple Pay card to your Apple Wallet and start transacting through Apple Pay. So it gives you detailed transaction information, such as the location, and it colors them by category or payments by category. They also use machine learning and Apple Maps to correctly identify the name of the retailer. So I'm sure everyone's experienced, you go and you buy something, usually for a pretty random amount, and you check your bank statement and you can't recall what that was because it's Joe Soap PLC. So it's kind of usually pretty difficult to tell. So the colors are reflected in a spending graph, which is pretty similar to the screen time layout, and in the card color. So it changes the actual card color in the Apple Wallet according to the mix of your spending. So that's pretty neat. So pretty much no two people will have the exact same digital card.
Yes.
So there's a rewards program, as with most credit cards, which is daily cash. So obviously it's in the name that you get these percentages back in the form of Apple Pay cash on a daily basis. So you get 3% back on Apple purchases. So that's Apple Store, Apple services, everything that ends up in Apple's bank accounts, whether it's in Ireland or the USA. You get 3% back on. You get 2% back if you use Apple Pay on every single transaction that you do. And then if you use a physical card, which is for when Apple Pay is not accepted, then you get 1% back. So they put up a chart to say, the percentage of retailers that support Apple Pay, and in the US it's 70%, and UK is 80%, and Australia made me so proud, 99%. And I'm sure it's on the higher end of the 99%. I've never had I think I've had one place that I've been to in my entire history in Australia that didn't support any contactless payments. So yep.
It's great.
And then I know a few other sort of tech watchers were pretty jealous that, we have 99%. So that actually led me to being curious, how's it been going with now that CommBank supports Apple Pay? Have you been, regularly using it? Was it worth, being an adamant
hanging out for it?
Yeah. What are your thoughts? Are you overall happy? Do you use it as much as you thought you would?
I use it everywhere possible.
Yeah.
Literally. Particularly using it on the watch. I love it. It's just such a cool thing, just strolling into the shops with nothing but your watch on. Bam, done. There's and I have had a few weird looks as well. So and your tip of the auto select for the Woolworths rewards, I use that all the time too. That's fantastic. So
good stuff.
Yeah. I often go to my local Woolies and BWS and stuff, and Apple Pay all the way.
Sweet ad. So there's smart payment suggestions to manage your payments, and which they tell you about the interest accrued, and they give you reminders, and it's really easy to pay. There's a pay button. It was pretty big, and you can, on that smart payment, you can drag around how much you're able to pay that month and see how that would affect your interest payments. So there's obviously an ethical issue with offering a credit card, and I feel like they do pretty well to mitigate the risk of people getting themselves into debt for extended periods of time. So another one of the things which is pretty good is they have no fees. So basically, they have no annual fees, no cash advance fees, no late fees. So usually late fees and no hidden fees. So usually late fees become hidden fees in the fact that they translate into an interest rate change, like an interest rate spike. So in this case, it's actually, that does not happen, but obviously this is all reported to credit reporting agencies. So that will affect your credit record, but there's no dollar fee directly, but obviously any future credit you look for will be affected. Now, most of the times when like a brand like Apple doesn't actually have a bank associated to it, release their credit card, there's like an underwriter for that credit risk. And in this case, they've partnered with Goldman Sachs to actually handle, the banking side of it. Obviously, Apple is not a bank. So, I think again, people fairly raised the issue, like concerns about Goldman Sachs's ethics and, stuff. And
which I'm unfamiliar with it because I know that you were concerned about it.
Yeah. So I think one example is just providing loans for like weapons manufacturers and stuff like that, and funding both sides in war and stuff like that. So look, I think sometimes you don't want to border on whether it's like conspiracy or whatever, but ultimately Goldman Sachs doesn't have a great reputation, and that's just a plain fact. And so it was risky, I think, for Apple to partner with them, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So one of my favorite things about this is it's definitely a modern credit card because all the support is handled through iMessage Business Chat, which is really cool. I'm still unsure exactly how iMessage Business Chat works. My assumption is that it's partly machine learning handled by like a real world person. Like they obviously filter the requests coming through to their actual like customer service representatives. So
working similar to just like a lot of those chatbots where they hand it off if they can't give you the answer. Do you mean that sort of thing? Yeah. I think it like sort of probably surfaces the recommended answer for like a human, and then they interact. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly, but it would be worthwhile reading into that. So yeah, it's coming Q3 2019. It's US only at this stage, but I think it's pretty cool. Oh, I love it. I think at least from what I've seen for the reaction, so you had people that were bagging the event overall saying, oh, this is boring, where's the iPhones? I'm like, clearly you don't know what you're talking about.
Give us an iPhone every week.
Yes, exactly. But people were raving about Apple Card. It just sucks that it won't be in Australia straight away, but it is a requirement to have Apple Pay cash available to receive your daily cash, of which is also not enabled in Australia yet. So I think that'll be a good indicator. Once we get Apple Pay cash, and surely this could follow soon after.
Yeah. So the titanium card, there was like a secondary piece by Matthew Panzarino around like the more questions that people had for about Apple Card, and the titanium card, which is the physical card, is actually free to replace. So Apple did say no fees, and that includes no card replacement fee or like first card fee. So yeah,
everyone's going to want one, even if they don't use it.
Yeah. On the like marketing video that Apple made for it, like they just show the chip and the Apple logo like on the one side, but apparently on the other side it has the Goldman Sachs logo and the MasterCard logo. So yeah, it's definitely like showing us what they know that we would want to see. But yeah, it's definitely going to become a status symbol, much more so than AirPods. And yeah, I mean, look, probably like a lot of people could afford pretty much a new iPhone a year with like their Apple Pay cash rewards. So I don't know. It's pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm excited. It was a surprise because when we're talking about Project Cookie in the last episode, followed by a slew of terrible cookie-related puns. It's a thing. It is probably the biggest surprise because I just thought, okay, this is just something that's floating around the rumor mill. We may never see it. So yeah, pleasantly surprised there. Okay. Apple Arcade, which is something that I was really drawn to, actually. So I actually guested on the latest podcast episode of Arcade Couch. So you can check that out for more detailed discussion on this. But essentially, to me, this is Apple's answer to Xbox Game Pass, and really a way to reduce the stigma of mobile gaming, which is commonly associated with, your Angry Birds and Bejeweled and all those sort of Candy Crush and stuff like that, and in-app purchases. So they're trying to sort of do away with that idea, and I sort of think of this as like the games version of TV Plus, where they're really focusing on the storytelling and creative aspects of games, as well as kind of like the rich sort of visual flair and everything. It's a monthly subscription, no pricing announced yet. I hope they can match Xbox Game Pass, which is $10.95 AUD. But I think it's going to fall anywhere between $6.99 and $9.99 US dollars. So that's 11 to 15 Australian. The launch will be later in 2019, but what's great is not US only. They've really going all out with this, so they're talking about wide availability. I forget how many countries they said, but it was close to 100 maybe? Over 100, yeah, fantastic. So the advantages to this service is there's no ads or in-app purchases, which is excellent, because I hate it when a game is just ruined by a really crummy-looking advert. And then you can enable family sharing for it. There's offline play, which is really good because you have Google's recent announcement of Stadia, which is purely a streaming thing. And I through talking to a lot of people that are into gaming, I doubt it's ever going to come to Australia because they're talking about 4K streaming. And, well, you know what Australian internet speeds are like compared to the rest of the world. So, yeah, offline play is great. In terms of games on board already, they said there will be over 100 games at launch. It's a mix of kind of like popular indie developers plus bigger names like the guy behind Final Fantasy and Sega and Konami. And to me, it kind of really strikes a balance between the ease of use, because it's available not only on OS, but Mac and Apple TV, which was quite a nice addition, as well as the games being like family friendly and diverse, so that didn't really see any, say, first person shooters or anything, but they weren't all kiddie games. You know, they were quite. I was really attracted to the different visual styles they were showing.
Yes.
So yeah, before I kind of get into a couple other points, what did you think of this announcement?
Like, I must admit, going in, this was probably the last thing I was interested in coming out.
Yeah.
I'm super keen for it. Like, when they had the video introducing it with the creators, it really made me excited. And they give you like what the world of the game is going to be about. And yeah, I was just super excited for it. I'm still super excited. I can't wait. So these games will be exclusive to Apple Arcade. They won't be on the App Store. The other exciting thing about it is they actually have game developers that Apple employs that will be working with these companies to actually bring these games to life. So it's like more of a collaboration than just like a licensing thing, which is also really exciting. I follow a few of them on Twitter, and I'd wondered, like, you know, you're a game developer and you're working at Apple, what are you doing? Like, and I thought, oh, maybe they're just making that little AR demo game that app developers can start with. But no, it seems like this was their bigger play, and I'm really excited about it. And that means that they can bring it to iOS, Mac, and Apple TV, you know, for all the games on all the platforms. It's fantastic. I'm super excited for that. And you know that like the actual performance on those will be top notch using best practices. So I'm super excited for this.
And it's a fantastic name for the service. I love it.
Yeah.
It's an alliteration. It's easy to say. It makes sense. It's built into the App Store as a tab.
And family sharing. That's like the other thing that we haven't really spoken about. But you know, on Apple Arcade, Apple News Plus, and Apple TV Plus, you get family sharing for no extra cost, which is really exciting. But on the Apple Card thing, you can actually not have like multiple cards attached to one account. So if you're in the US and you usually have like a shared credit card with your partner, this wouldn't work in that case. It's a one card per person. Well, one account per
per card.
One card per account. Yeah.
That's it.
And no Android support, so don't be switching.
Yes, yeah. It requires an iPhone to have the Apple Card.
Oh, Oh, sorry. I know we have more to talk about on Apple Arcade, but it also reminded me, I was wondering where they're going to put this on the account. So, I mean, sorry, on the website, like where are they putting Apple Card on the website? So it turns out that they're putting it into the more section under iPhone. So yeah, it's not like if you have an iPad, you could be doing this. It's definitely, like iPhone only. And
specific,
and it's kind of marketed as a sub-product within iPhone. Compare that to TV now, which now has its own tab on the nav bar on the Apple website, and that has like more stuff than it used to be. A little bit more hidden, I think, like not quite as But yeah, some changes there.
Yeah, definitely. So what I think they really, really need to do, and I really hope it happens, is I think Apple need to offer their own controller, their own Bluetooth controller, W-chip enabled, to really, because especially looking at some of these types of games, like some of them could be, the sort of touch interactive storyteller ones, like your Monument Valley and that, but ones that are more like a racer or an action game and that, I really think the main thing that gamers don't like about mobile gaming is touchscreen controls. And you can get Bluetooth controls that can work with Apple TV and such. And trying to game on the Apple TV remote is, unless you're playing something like Crossy Road, some of the other games are actually pretty. It's not a great experience. So I would love them to launch their own controller at September at the same time that the service launches. And I'm just thinking about, okay, I've got something as powerful as the iPad Pro, boom, take that around with me, carry my controller, and then you can just game anywhere. It'd be like your own Switch, but on steroids.
Yep.
And I don't know about you, but I feel like that's like the final piece of the puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
To try and sell the service. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know Switch is very popular for, traveling, and I think, I would personally prefer like an iPad Pro and a gaming controller for being in an airplane. That would be epic. So much fun.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm expecting launch in September, and alongside that, I think they're holding back at least another big major game, and I'm hoping it's the Nintendo one. So that could, because Nintendo experienced the big paywall issues with Super Mario Run, and they've got their Mario Kart one and their Dr. Mario one coming out, but if it's something like Zelda and that, which I don't think it will be, because there's actually a game they previewed when they're showing all the game footage, it's called Oceanhorn 2, and I was like, for a second there I was like, oh, it's Zelda, it's like, and then I looked into it and no, it's this game called Oceanhorn, which is essentially like Zelda for people that don't play Zelda. Like it looks so much like Link, but anyway, yeah, I'm expecting at least one more announcement to really kick that off.
I'm pretty sure that I saw Sonic in some of the materials, so that would definitely be one. I would personally count that as one big IP announcement. But
yeah, that was Sega Racing. Yeah. Well, that actually wraps up the event. So, what were your thoughts overall, and what do you think about this negative criticism about it? Personally, I think it's just ridiculous considering what we got a year ago was a education event, which is much more of a niche thing because it's education focused, and a single iPad.
Yeah. Well, I would like people to realize that this sort of I preferred when Apple was a Mac company. Like, you're a gatekeeping, antique. Go away. That's just, that attitude irritates me. Partly, it's gatekeeping. It's this is how Nokia and BlackBerry ended up failing. They didn't diversify. If I want Apple to have my photos in the cloud for the next 25 years, the way that they're going to do that is not by selling iPhones. I can promise you that, because something will come along that will kill the iPhone. The way that they'll do that is by keeping enough money in the bank and keeping their services and hardware strong, over time. And that's, it's just a reality. Like, if you don't want Apple to build anything other than a Mac, the time will come where Apple will not be able to build a Mac and you'll be left in the, out in the cold. So, I think it's important for people to understand that, if you want the product that you're passionate about, chances are that it wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Apple being the company that it is today. So, it's fine if you don't want to like the new stuff, don't buy it. Vote with your dollars, but definitely don't discourage it, in my view.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was definitely a different event. I think had we had some trailers and stuff for the TV Plus, that would have helped a lot. But I think, particularly Card and Arcade, those presentations were great. Performance at the ending was great. There was probably some little bits where, you had the actors or whatever talking on stage and you had like a group of them, and then suddenly you had sort of like Jason Momoa standing there, like not talking as the other person's talking, and that was a little bit awkward, like a little bit standing on stage for a bit too long. But really, aside from that, I can't really complain, because it was something that we hadn't seen before, and it was at the Steve Jobs Theatre, and it featured all these famous people that we recognise. So it was cool.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think just to round off on the event, so one of the most exciting things was the announcement that, like, they've trialed this before at the October event, but was that all Apple stores with a video wall would actually be live streaming the event. And
yeah.
So I was really excited for this because, I'm obviously a huge Apple nerd or fanboy, whatever you want to say. I'm clearly one. And so I thought, hey, I wake up to watch these things all the time. Like, it would be pretty cool to meet other people that are willing to do that. And so I don't have a car that I drive. So basically, I have to catch an Uber to get anywhere at a sort of arbitrary time of the morning, such as, 3:30 a.m. So I dutifully woke up at 3 a.m., got ready and caught my Uber and had my little coffee, in my travel mug. And I was with
my
partner. Obviously, she supports me on all of these adventures.
So she went along too.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
She's a massive Apple fan. So, we kind of walked up to the Chadstone entrance and pull on it and doesn't open. So I see there's a green light just over the top of one of the other doors. I'll just pull that one. It's obviously open. And try pull on it and it's also not open. So I think, they probably just have one entrance open. You just need to know which entrance is it, and you'll go in there, right? And I see two cars in the parking. I'm like, definitely Apple employees. They're here. So I call the security. I call Chadstone, and they're like, please call back between the office hours of 9 to 5. But if you want security, please press 1. So I'm like, security will know which door's open. So I press 1 and I say, yeah. He's like, Apple Chadstone and whatever. He's like, yeah, Chadstone security. I'm like, yeah, which entrance is open? And he's like, dude, no entrance is open. We only open at 6 a.m. What do you want? I'm like, no. Apple's having an event and live streaming it in the store. It's definitely happening. So it's like, no, it's not happening. What is this? They would have told me. He's saying it must be at 6 a.m. So I'm like, no, it can't be at 6 a.m. It's happening in the US, which means it's live, and it's going to be now at 4 a.m. And it's 3:57 at this point. So I'm like, I need to get into the store. He's like, no, okay, let me check my list, because they would let me know if that was happening, for exceptions, security exceptions. So
yeah.
He's checking his list. He comes back to me. He's like, nah, sorry, it's definitely not happening. And I'm like, okay, we've been going back and forth. So he lets me know it's not happening. So I put down and I'm like, okay. Michelle says to me, are you sure it's happening? I'm like, I've checked this article. I've even sent it to people. I know Apple Chadstone's there on the article. So I go back and check the article, and somehow all the Apple stores in Australia have disappeared quietly from this article. But the thing that annoyed me the most is that, just prior to that, the publisher of the article had tried to create a crowdsourcing effort to get photos from every event. And I tweeted the author of the article saying, look, I'm happy to get the Chadstone ones, as long as, I can catch an Uber at 3:30, which is obvious. And no reply. So I was like, yeah, I'll still get them anyway. So he's removed Apple Chadstone and didn't use that opportunity to say oh yeah, don't worry about that. And then after after I've been turned away now, like the event started, I'm watching it on my iPad that I took to, with me to the event. I'm waiting for my Uber. Like, eventually the Uber picks me up and I get back after missing all of Apple News Plus. But, I tweet saying like, oh yeah, Apple Chadston, missed the first bit of the event because Apple Chadston didn't have it. And he's like, oh yeah, sorry, not Australia stores. I'm like, why didn't you just say that a few days ago when you removed it from the article? Like, why? So yeah, I was pretty upset about that whole thing. But it's not all bad news. I did discover a new thing which affects all Optus iPhone XS or XR users. Optus is supporting eSIM from April 12th, and I mean eSIM on the iPhone. So yeah, you have to go in-store to get the QR code, and you need to be on iOS 12.2. But once you do that, you can then scan the QR code and move your SIM connection over to the eSIM, and you can remove your physical SIM and use any other physical SIM, whether it's for data or travel SIMs. I'm super excited about it for travel SIMs. So yeah, that's
So have you done that?
Not yet. So it's only from April 12th and from 27th of March in select stores. So not my local store. So I'll just wait till April 12th on that one. But yeah, so that's super exciting for me. They had previously said they have no intention to support it. So yeah, I just kind of Googled it this morning and saw that. I was like, oh, what are the chances? Their chat support was really useless because I was like, oh, does, my local store have it? They're like, we cannot provide any information around which stores have it. I was like, dude, thank you so much. It's a flippin' QR code. Like, I'm not asking you for anything difficult here, but anyway, I'm super excited about that.
That's awesome. I actually completely forgotten about eSIM, so that's handy to know because come September when I upgrade, and being an Optus customer, I'll take advantage of that. Fantastic. All right, so that wraps up episode 72 of Apple Size. We're part of the Ozcast network. Please head to auscastnetwork.com to find us and plenty of others. Thanks again to our sponsor, The Sizzle. You could sign up to the newsletter at thesizzle.com.au/slice. And please search in your podcast player if you haven't already and subscribe to us. Leave a review if you're in the Apple Podcasts app. That would be excellent. And applesize.com.au is where we post all the episodes and podcast player links. So, have Apple set a precedent now with services keynotes, do you think?
It'll be interesting to see how they integrate these into their future product announcements because, at what stage are their iterations significant enough that they get stage time. So yeah, it'll be good to see how what version 2.0 of these services will be.
So I'm now throwing out my, just off the top of my head, product wish is that the upcoming Mac Pro, which they will announce at WWDC, will come with built-in contactless distance charging.
Wow. Ever the optimist, Simon. We need one of them.
Yeah, that's it. All right, great for the event wrap-up, and we'll see what next episode holds in store.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free. and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.